So we're on part 2 of President Adams and his administration. So the effects of the XYZ affair. Once Adams does send his second team back over there, he realizes we need to create a brand new secretary position to the cabinet, Secretary of Navy. So we get another branch of our armed forces created because Adams realizes that's the war. Wars are fought also in the ocean, on the sea, so we might as well create a navy. How Americans feel after this is this thing that we're going to look at quite often in this course in the beginning part, is this feeling, the sentiment of nativism. What nativism is an anti-immigrant or anti-foreigner feeling. A lot of Americans really believe that the French and any other foreigner shouldn't be here. They start to get very distrustful of anyone who's not born in the United States. And so you're going to see several groups throughout history really become nativists. We're going to have a know-nothing political party here in America that will be nativists. We're going to see different groups that are hate groups that will they will propel this. So the Klan is a nativist group. So we're going to have quite a few people in American history where this is going to be the big feeling that they have. And America will have a lot of anti-immigration laws. So we're going to do a lot of immigration quota laws. And eventually that stuff goes away, but it goes away in the 1960s when civil rights kind of comes into effect. So in the Alien and Sedition Act, this is kind of a response to everything that's been going on with France trying to make us pay, and then you've got Thomas Jefferson and the Democrat Republicans constantly criticizing John Adams. So he goes ahead and Congress passes this Alien and Sedition Act. He signs it into law. Alien just means foreigner. So it just means an immigrant. And so the Alien Act is just going to take a heck of a lot longer to become a U.S. citizen now in the nation, because a lot of the immigrants are actually becoming Democrat-Republican Party members. So they're coming over here, and the party that they think best represents them is the Democrat-Republican. So if you make it longer for them to have to live here and have that citizenship requirement, that means they're not going to vote. And matter of fact, they're not going to vote in the next election that's coming up. You know, you're looking at 1797, 1798 when this stuff is getting passed. And he's doing this, or at least the Democrat Republicans feel he's doing this to ensure that he will win the next election cycle, okay? Then you have the Sedition Act. And what the Sedition Act does is it censors the media. It censors free speech. So it actually is kind of a violation of our First Amendment. Not kinda, it is. You cannot say anything that is negative about the government, which means you can't say anything negative about President Adams. You can't say anything negative about the Federalist Party because he is the leader of the Federalist Party. And the Democrat Republicans understand this. They realize this is an attack on them. And so even though, there's a lot of speculation about these two acts, but people do get arrested for sedition, and some people do go to jail for it. So if you say, I don't like the president, well, that's sedition, and now you're going to go to prison. Okay, prison is just not a place that most people want to go to. So Virginia and Kentucky resolutions are going to be written by Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. And this is a response to the Sedition Act. Okay, so two southern states, even though Kentucky is really going to be considered a western state, they're a plantation state. They've got a plantation system. They don't agree with this, so they write a reply. And the reply says that Virginia and Kentucky are not going to follow this new federal law. We will not enforce it. We're not going to arrest people. We're not going to do anything about it. We, matter of fact, are going to nullify this. And what nullify means, remember we talked about it, that fancy word, strike out, void, cancel. So a state, and not just a state, two states, and one of them a major state, Virginia, has just said to the federal government, I don't think we're going to follow that law. I don't think we're going to do that. John Adams is, of course, livid with it, but sometimes, not having, big public, hissy fit is probably best. But this is something I need you guys to hold on here, this Virginia and Kentucky resolution. You know, when the southern states get upset, they're going to claim this. This is a dangerous precedent, and southern states are going to use this theory of nullification, that they can strike out federal law when they don't like it, when it doesn't sit well with them, again and again, even though the Sedition Act is bad. Okay, and technically, when you look at the Constitution, it's not okay that they did it, but they're going to use this as time goes on to say every time a law gets passed that they don't like, that they feel is a violation of their rights, they're going to say, nullify, nullify, nullify. And it's going to happen in 1832. South Carolina is going to write a whole big long letter, and they're going to nullify the Tariff of Abomination. And we're going to talk about that because Jackson's going to be the president, and he ain't having none of that. And then in 1860, South Carolina, again, is going to nullify an entire federal election. They nullify the new president of the United States, President Lincoln. They say, we're not going to go with it. And then we get, the Civil War. And then eventually the southern states will realize he is their president. All right, the election of 1800. So all this turmoil in President Adams' administration leads to an incumbent, a current president, seeking re-election when the public opinion is not with him. And so John Adams, the Federalist, is going to lose to his VP, Thomas Jefferson, the Democrat-Republican. When Jefferson is running in the election of 1800, he promises a revolution. He says, we will return to the original meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Jefferson wins. Adams isn't happy. And so Adams is going to react with this Midnight Judges. So in the Midnight Judges, he is, and it is listed, the president does have the power to nominate and appoint judges to federal court positions. Sorry, when you're popular, you get phone calls. All right, so anyway, the presidents are allowed to actually appoint judges to the federal court positions, and so Adams takes full advantage of this. There are quite a few positions open after the election. He is still the president, He's the president until the stroke of midnight. And so Adams decides to appoint his buddies, his Federalist Party members, to these open positions. He is living with the fear that this new guy who's coming in is going to strike out all of his beautiful laws that he's created, all the things he's done as a Federalist president. So he panics, and he appoints people, and he's appointing people well after midnight. But the ball is over. The clock has struck midnight, and even Cinderella's beautiful dress goes away, and so does your power of presidency. So not all these contracts or papers are delivered, and so when President Jefferson gets sworn in, he refuses to recognize them. One guy goes ahead and sues. His name is Marbury. So Marbury versus Madison. The Supreme Court ruled the Judiciary Act of 1801 was illegal. Contracts are property, and you can sue on that. If you got a contract for a job, it's your property rights. And they rule the most important thing is judicial review. This is an added power to the Supreme Court of the United States that's not in the U.S. Constitution. And judicial review, the court may review prior court decisions and laws to determine if they're constitutional, legal, or unconstitutional, illegal. And a really good example of this is Brown versus Board. In 1954, the court ruled that separate can never, ever, ever be equal. And that overturned that old Plessy versus Ferguson decision in 1896 that says separate is equal. Basically, what Brown, the decision did, is it used judicial review. So it's a really good power that happened from kind of a bad time in history. So that's President Adams' administration.